What is going on, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the second commercial album by NF. Basically, this album is called Therapy Session, and it came out in the spring of 2016. Now, this album came out a year after his hit and breakout album, Mansion, from 2015. That was definitely a pretty large scale kind of one that I definitely enjoyed. That's probably one of my more favorite NF albums. I really liked his album from 2019, The Search, and then I also liked Mansion pretty well. Those are two of my top three or top four NF albums. But then I would say, I did actually like Perception a lot. I really appreciated the singles on Perception, but I kind of feel like this album, and I feel like Therapy Session, with the exception of the singles, outstrips Perception. I'd probably say it might outstrip like the singles from Mansion. I don't really own Mansion. I've kind of forgotten about that particular album, but I do remember it had some party cuts on there. It was just a very dark and brooding album, and NF kicked off his reign pretty well with that particular album, but I don't wholesomely remember it. But I would have to say I do own Perception. I do think that it's pretty much like, I feel like the singles are probably better on The Search. That's another one where the singles were probably better, but this one just has a lot of broodiness. The thing about Therapy Session is, like the album title suggests, it's very much like a pure emotive and kind of dark and just overall kind of sprawling, kind of moody kind of album that just has a lot to say and a lot of personal ruminations. Like, if you like stuff that Eminem does, like Recovery and the Eminem Show and some of those type ones where he has more brooding kind of records on there, this is basically NF's like Eminem Show almost in a lot of ways. I mean, it may not have like the commercial spasticness of songs like Without Me, and it may not have like the commercial kind of spasticness of songs like Without Me and Superman and Business and some of those type ones, but it does definitely have like the Recovery. The thing about NF is he really mastered like Eminem's Recovery type template extremely well, and he continued to have several albums where I feel like Mansion, Therapy Session, Perception, The Search, even Clouds, and probably even Hope from 2023 really have that style down pat. This is just a sound that just encapsulated like 2010s rap music as far as that kind of was concerned. There's a lot of songs on here that just feel like circa 2010s in terms of what he was doing with radio around that time. There's just certain songs that this template was copied and just really felt like something revolutionary as far as that's kind of concerned. Now, the skeleton that was laid down on Mansion from 2015 was good, but once again, I don't wholesomely remember it enough to be able to say, like, commenting on the singles as far as that kind of went. But I would say I can definitely say that Therapy Session seems to be like an evolution of it, where I feel like the song I Just Want to Know is kind of like an early kind of sketchy version of the stuff NF would do on Perception with songs like Lie and Lie Like That, and like the other one, Let You Down, and some of those type ones. I would definitely kind of say. So it's just kind of the concept that NF really started to master like his radio kind of single marketability 2017 forward. This is kind of one where he was kind of in the sketchy early stages, but this album has like a heap of personality when it comes to just like this broodiness. And what NF particularly worked on this particular album is just character. That's the main thing about this album. There's not a ton of guests on here, but the main thing that was worked on in this album, it seemed like to me, was just dark brooding beats to kind of emphasize and accentuate like his character as far as showcasing the fact that he can rap and he has like a compelling kind of Eminem and Tech Nine and Hobson like personality for some of those ruminating type gems. So this is a good one. This may not have as many party cuts as Mansion did, and it may not have the ferocious kind of energy, but it does brood. It does have some brooding moments on here, and I would definitely say that this is, if you like albums like Recovery by Eminem and stuff like that, or albums that like Hobson did, or Tech Nine and his more personal moments, I would say this is definitely one to look up, because NF is basically a pretty good pro at these rumination type gems. But we'll go ahead and talk about the singles. There were 3 singles on this album. The first single is one I don't recommend, and that's Intro 2. To talk about that one, Intro 2 is just basically kind of like a gothic, our Intro 2 is just kind of like an operatic kind of kickoff, kind of trap bubbler as far as that's kind of concerned. Didn't really appreciate this one just because I didn't like the overly dramatic kind of operatic type tone of like the particular record. And plus, I kind of felt like it probably needed a more interesting song title and topic than just intro and stuff. But he kind of did that with Mansion. I think I want to say I didn't enjoy that one from that album either. But I would have to say this is kind of like NF and his usual kind of brooding and that sort of aspect, but just kind of in a more thunderous and kind of more demonic kind of aspect as far as that kind of goes. But I just look after it. Wasn't the most compelling format. I feel like when he does these songs, at least in a little bit less operatic type tone, it definitely works out a lot better. And this is just kind of one that just the dramaticness of it was just not quite as electric as probably what it needed to be. That's kind of the thing. But I Just Want to Know is the second single, and this is definitely a highlight off this album. This is one, like I was saying, this is kind of in a sketchy early stage of the stuff that NF would do a year and a half later with Perception. Some of those songs like Lie and like some of those songs like Lie and Let You Down in some of those particular type moments. So I Just Want to Know is kind of like a nice, sketchy early NF radio single. I would definitely say it's presentable with like a good day commute kind of feel. This is definitely one, or if you need absolutely more NF songs that are just kind of morning and brunch time, kind of marketable, ready to go to work type feels as far as that's kind of concerned. This is just one for that kind of concept of just early morning 8:30, 9:30, going to Target, going to breakfast, those type moments, going to Starbucks, some of those particular type moments as far as that kind of goes. Just good, kind of just dreary almost sounding, just kind of that same morning brunch kind of lunchtime malaise kind of blear about it, but it's definitely a marketable one. Like NF figured out this sound pretty quickly, and NF definitely figured out this template pretty quickly and just was able to do it excellently well. This overall, this is the sort of stuff that if you like Perception, this is a good song to kind of have, and this is just a strength for NF. This is just a good one. But there's not a ton of songs like this on here, apart from Breathe. That's the only real other one that I feel like is kind of like in that brunch time commute like this one. But Real is the third single, and this is a good song, but it's just basically like a lengthy verse. It's not really in like a typical kind of song format, but it's kind of a dramatic, pulsating gem. Real is like a dramatic, pulsating gem with electricity. It feels like it could be for like a movie trailer, something like that, something you see in a movie theater when you get like a really dramatic action type movie as far as something like that kind of goes. And it just feels like a night venue hit. This is definitely one that probably could be at like a night venue, some sort of nightclub, something like that. I mean, NF doesn't overly abundantly do songs like this, but I feel like this one's good enough to kind of have in like a night out kind of sense. It just has that real kind of exhilarating, just like complete shell shock of like a song, and just the energy on this particular song is real dramatic and just overall feels like a nice, this exhilarating kind of one that just works extremely well. So it's just a nice one for that. It works as pretty well as a single, but I do kind of wish that would have been in a regular song format with like a chorus, and would have been with like a chorus and that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. But it is pretty good. So there's 14 songs on this album, and I wound up recommending to you 9 out of 14. So I'm gonna go ahead and recommend those 9 songs. They would be I Just Want to Know, How Could You Leave Us, I Can Feel It, All I Do, Real, Statement, Wish You Wouldn't, Breathe, and Got You on My Mind. So there's some definite ones. If you like these kind of moody, kind of brooding, kind of piano type songs on here, there's a lot of songs like that. There's some songs like How Could You Leave Us and I Can Feel It and like Wish You Wouldn't, and some of those type ones that definitely kind of have like a real kind of haunting, this glum kind of day kind of feels about them. There's definitely some ones like that on here. A lot of productions kind of have that sort of format. This is just a pretty moody album. This typical NF as far as how that kind of goes. This is a typical kind of brooding and overall kind of compelling ruminating that he's known for. I would say definitely one of probably the more strong songs on this album that I definitely enjoyed was How Could You Leave Us. This one is a very grim and moody personal highlight. I feel like the vibes can be felt, and it's just a strong ruminating gem. So this one's about NF's family as far as that's kind of concerned, tragedies in the family. I would definitely say. If I look at the concept, this is just kind of great ruminating that just works in like a format. This is the sort of stuff that Eminem routinely kind of does, and this is a personal song and just has a lot of spark on here that just works as like an overall highlight on the album. It's not to say that with this song with the lyrics like this that it should have to be a highlight after what NF went through, but it's definitely a pretty good one. Another real highlight on here, if you like some of the party songs from Mansion and that type of stuff, NF does at least have 1 or 2 of those on here. Apart from Real, another one that I can say is kind of like a nightclub kind of highlight is All I Do. This is a pounding trap gem. It's a rowdy and strong party starter cut, I would definitely say, and it's got some exuberant night venue vibes. So this is definitely one I really do feel like NF should try to reserve more than just 1 or 2 songs per album for like some night out and kind of nightclub kind of vibes, because he definitely excels at this sort of stuff. He can do some kind of trap moments on here. Another moment that's kind of like that a little bit. Another one that's kind of like that a little bit is Grinding, but I definitely feel like songs like Statement. Another one that kind of does that particular vibe of All I Do is Statement. We'll get to that one, but All I Do is definitely probably the most litty song on this album in terms of just like stepping out. It just really feels like a pounding kind of trap cut that just All I Do just really feels like a pounding trap cut that just really works as like an exhilarating kind of vibe that just is very much in short supply, which is too bad. But another song like that is Statement, and this one's kind of a ghostly trap cut, I would say. NF goes in on this particular song. He's lyrical on here. It sounds relevant, and it's a stellar flex song, I would definitely say, and it just has an overall moody feel. So these are just some ones. I do feel like the concept of some of these night out kind of songs like Real, Statement, and and All I Do are some good ones to kind of have in just like a more night fair type sense. This is kind of the concept about it. Now, I don't believe that there's cuss words on this particular album. I want to say that it's kept within just a relatively clean format as far as that kind of goes. But NF is kind of a Christian rapper in some senses, so that's kind of the concept about it. But it is still pretty leery trap music that's just pretty awesome to kind of get. I definitely like the concept of getting some of these. These are some pretty solid party starters, just minus the fact that it's more cleaner in a format as far as how that kind of goes. But yeah, I would say Statement, Real, and All I Do are some nice ones for that. Another song that's very similar to I Just Want to Know is Breathe. This is a day commute radio ready cut. I would say this is vanilla NF ruminations, I would say, and it's just good stuff that's very marketable. So this is kind of one. This is another kind of sketchier one that kind of feels just like NF's later developed. It's just kind of another sketchier one that kind of feels like NF's later developed Perception Days. I feel like this is a good concept to kind of get some of these, but there's just not a ton of these songs on here. Like I think NF realizes that he does have this strength of like morning and brunch time commute songs as far as that kind of goes, just kind of recovery type, ruminating type template, just marketable, radio ready to go to work type songs, but it doesn't happen oftenly. I think it happened more on Perception, but there are a couple songs like that on here, but it's just not a ton. Another song that's marketable towards radio, which is kind of similar to Breathe and I Just Want to Know, has Got You on My Mind. This is a commercial and marketable ladies cut, I would say. It feels like some 2010s radio fluff, I would say, and it's pretty catchy. The thing about this song is it's pretty dramatic. It's just kind of a looming and dramatic kind of song. This really feels like a pretty strong, powerful type cut just for like a normal kind of ladies kind of bop. So this one's not just like frivolous as much as this kind of very dramatic looming kind of one for like the ladies as far as that's kind of concerned. It's just it just kind of has like a more strengthy kind of feel about it, which is just kind of, you know, for typical ladies bops, you would think it'd be a little bit more frivolity, have a little bit more frivolity and that type of stuff, but it just kind of feels like really looming kind of one, just dramatic in that sort of sense. That's kind of the concept about it, but it is a nice one. Really nice, strong one on here is Wish You Wouldn't. This is a somber and vivid personal cut with excellent haunting production, I would say, and it just shows that NF has some characters. So it's definitely kind of a nice one. This is what I talk about. Some of these songs, like I Can Feel It and How Could You Leave Us and Wish You Wouldn't, are just kind of some ones that just have that real brooding kind of energy. The NF just basically these just have some real brooding kind of energy that NF just basically became a pro at with some of these particular albums. He just really nailed. NF really became a pro at these and chiseled out like his particular aspect as far as getting these kind of done. So this is just some good stuff that shows that he has character. And it's just a really kind of somber and just haunting kind of production on here, that these are just a real kind of exuberant time to listen to. These are just some great ones on here, just some great times. Really gets you enthralled in like the aspects of the album, would have to say. And then I Can Feel It's another one that's like that. I Can Feel It is basically like a haunting regular day kind of bop, I would say. It's makeshift, but it kind of has a leery and grim feel about it, and this overall has strong production. So I would have to say there's a lot of songs on here where NF really upped like his beat game. There's plenty of good beats on here, I would definitely say. It's just an overall exacting kind of feel. It just works extremely well. There's definitely some real kind of grim type feels. And really, about one of the few complaints I could really say about NF on this particular album is just the fact that he just is kind of pretty uptight. I feel like the concept of this being called therapy session really makes you think that you're getting like a personal kind of intake, insular kind of vibe about how a lot of this kind of goes. But I just look after it. There's not a lot of time. Not a lot of time for frivolity. And even ladies songs like Got You on My Mind and moments like that, and some of those type ones just kind of feel like serious to like a T, as serious as a heart attack type feels as far as that kind of goes. And it's just like, you don't like, I think I complained about this. I know I complained about this at least on Perception and maybe on Mansion. I don't remember what I thought of Mansion back in May, but I would have to say I do kind of like to kind of get some of these more loosened up NF cuts, but it just kind of, I feel like he really has this recovery era template from Eminem down pretty damn well. But I look after it like there are some marketable moments, but I think that's pretty much like a continued complaint that you can have about NF, is that he just gets too uptight. And it's not to say uptight like that, like it's a humongous problem. This is a pretty stellar album. It's just the fact that you just don't have a lot of time for like recreational as much as far as that kind of goes. That's this kind of thing. But to talk about the 5 songs I didn't enjoy, like I really didn't like the kind of operatic and just overly dramatic kind of productions of Intro 2 and Therapy Session. Those were 2 ones I just didn't appreciate that much. Oh Lord kind of had a lackadaisical, kind of overly religious kind of tone that I didn't vibe with as much. I didn't like the kind of starry-eyed kind of commercial type upbeatness of Lost in the Moment. That one was just a little bit too commercial and kind of upbeat for how I would have wanted it. And then there was another one I didn't like, the kind of jitteriness of grinding that much. I mean, that one was trying to be like a trap cut, and that probably could have been another one where NF was kind of loosened up, but it was just a little bit too overly serious. Just kind of felt like more kind of typical ruminating that just didn't have quite as much character this time. There's some ones that kind of do it, but I think that this song probably should have just had a little bit. He probably should have just thrown another party cut on there. And that probably would have been better. But I look after it, so me basically liking 9 songs out of 14. I'm gonna go ahead and give this album like it's either gonna get a 7.75 or an 8. I think I'm gonna give this album like an 8 out of 10. I feel like it's pretty damn good. I definitely think there's a number of cuts on here worth talking about. This is one of NF's better projects. I think I still probably like Mansion and The Search better, but I would have to say that this is up there. I mean, NF does have usually pretty stellar albums, and this is another one that kind of does that. But really, I think I probably like Mansion and The Search better, but I would have to say that this is not a bad album. This is definitely probably one of NF's better ones. And it's just kind of the concept that it has pretty focused and compelling kind of vibes that are just really airtight and just really work pretty well. I mean, it's pretty snappy in like its quality. It's just the fact that it just has like a few loose cuts that just don't quite hit as wholesomely, and just some of the dramatic, just there's some ones that are kind of overly dramatic on here that just don't work quite as well. And it just kind of has that concept. And probably there should have been some guests on here also, some stuff like that. A few more party songs like All I Do, some moments like that. Just, just that kind of approach is less kind of operatic type tones as far as that kind of went. But in terms of like the social score, I'll give the social score like a 7 out of 10, just because I feel like I'll give the social score like a 7 out of 10 because I definitely think the singles are pretty good. 2 out of 3 of them are pretty damn good, but I think it probably could have used another moment like I Just Want to Know, and probably another moment like All I Do. I think that could have definitely been a single. This kind of felt like it's just very formatted, very focused. But like I said, this is a pretty uptight album, and as a result, it's compelling in some senses, but it's kind of kept to a minimum in terms of like the social sense, where some of these are good to kind of have around your buds. But this is all like NF has usually kind of been more of like a focused and just kind of ruminating type cat that's kind of in some cases more of a loner for the most part. This is kind of the concept about it. But there are some moments for social kind of vibes, but it's just not overly often. So that's just kind of the concept. So 7 social. In terms of the future, like NF put out an album in 2023 called Hope, which I'm eventually going to get to and such. So we'll see about that one. But there are some more NF projects, like some EPs, a couple of EPs like that, 2 EPs, and then like his album from 2010, which I don't know about. So that's some good stuff there. We'll have to see about that.